You're watching JCT TV. This is Bible study for the 21st century. So welcome, friends. I have been studying Matthew 24 with you for the past few programs. Not only last week, but then before the Christmas break, we were into it. And it's so timely, so relevant in this world of total chaos in which we live, for Jesus to give us insight into the end of days. And so we'll get to it right after this short break. So Matthew 24 starts with the disciples, let me just read it here, asking Jesus as they're walking by. You know, these are guys from the Upper Galilee. They're actually the Lower Galilee, right down by the Sea of Galilee. They're fishermen, and maybe, you know, they're still in awe of the urban setting of Jerusalem in comparison to the relatively backwoods rural setting that they're used to around the lake. So they're looking at the buildings, and Jesus says, "You see these things? I tell you, not one stone here will be left on another. Everyone will be thrown down," which of course is what happened just a few years later in 70 AD when Titus came in with the Roman forces and totally decimated Jerusalem. Anyway, they sit with Jesus on the Mount of Olives, which was a favorite meeting place for Jesus with his men. And they say, "Tell us, when will this happen? What will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?" Jesus gets into a kind of a summary of what they can expect. And it sounds like we're reading about, you know, our 21st century with all of the trials and tribulations, environmentally, geopolitically. I mean, wars and rumors of wars, pestilence, earthquake, famine, flooding. It seems that every day there's another big bad news story that comes our way. Jesus says, these are just the beginning of birth pangs. Don't overreact. But he does give us one vital insight. He says, verse 14 of 24, "This gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come." So everything pivots on the gospel getting out to the entire world, so that there can be no nation, seen and unseen, no tribal entity, whether in a desert or in a jungle, that can say, "Well, we didn't hear it. We don't know anything about it." Once that happens, Jesus says, the generation that sees that happen will be the generation that sees the end. Well, he says then in verse 42, "Keep watch. Stay alert. You do not know on what day your Lord will come. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known at what time of night the thief was coming, he would have kept watch and would not have let his house be broken into. So you also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him." There's an ancient rabbinic saying three things come unexpectedly. Messiah, number one, the discovery of a treasure, number two, and a scorpion. Jesus' coming will be utterly unexpected, with no possible speculative warning other than be ready. We're to live every day with heaven in our sights. And that doesn't mean walk around, always looking up, so heavenly minded we're no earthly good. No. It just simply means we understand that we're not only under God's authority and accountable to him, but we're also subject to his agenda. We call the timetable from the eternal dimension. There's no such thing as time, but nevertheless, for the purposes of our human communication, it's his timetable, not ours. And so we have to be prepared to be surprised. There you go. Okay, 45. Who then is the faithful and wise servant, whom the master has put in charge of the servants in his household to give them their food at the proper time? It will be good for that servant whose master finds him doing so when he returns. Truly, I tell you, he'll put him in charge of all his possessions. But suppose that servant is wicked and says to himself, my master is staying away a long time, and he then begins to beat his fellow servants, to eat and drink with drunkards. The master of that servant will come in a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour he's unaware of. He'll cut him to pieces and assign him a place with hypocrites where there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth. It's important to remember when Jesus speaks parabolically, he often uses what we call hyperbole, exaggeration for the sake of emphasis. On one occasion, he says, if your right eye offends you, gouge it out, throw it away. If your right arm offends you, cut it off. He doesn't want a bunch of maimed and disfigured disciples walking around. He's just simply making a point. And here, when he's talking about this unfaithful servant being cut to pieces, that's more hyperbole, but he's making a very distinct point. It really is this ready and not ready theme. Just like the workers in the field weren't ready, while a few were, this is ready, not ready, again. And we're going to see it a few times here now. He employs this parable of good and bad servants who've been put in charge of their master's household in his absence. And the faithful servants will work diligently, even though there's no one there to check up on them. The unfaithful servants will indulge themselves and even fight with one another. The master will return unexpectedly, and the sneaky indolence will be caught in the act. In an age referred to by modern Israelis as meod primitivi, very primitive, the bad guys in this parable meet an unhappy end, to say the least. So there's two applications of this parable. One is space-time, the other a kingdom of heaven lesson. In terms of space and time, avoid sinful living just because Jesus' coming seems delayed. And in terms of the kingdom of heaven, there will be work to do. The Bible, in another place in the King James Version, talks about ruling and reigning with the Lord. Boy, that intrigues me. Ruling and reigning. What that suggests, among other things, is that heaven is not a celestial old folks' home, It's not a passive place where you just sit around and eat and drink and sleep and do nothing. The James Webb Telescope is showing us astonishing insights into the universe. We're seeing things that have never been seen before. And you look at this inestimably huge universe, which seems to go on and on and on and on and on and on and on over trillions of light years, with all of these planets, all of these stars, all of these galaxies. And you say, is there a plan for this? Is there a plan? I sometimes wonder if we are not a part of the plan. Here you have this little bit of dust that we call Earth that's spinning around on the outer edges of the Milky Way galaxy, just so infinitesimally small compared to just our galaxy, let alone the galaxies that are out there. And here, the Lord creates man and woman in his image, breathes into our nostrils the breath of life. We become a living soul, and he creates us to be in fellowship with him and with one another. And he teaches us through his word that we have an eternal destiny and that we are going to rule and reign with him. What? over each other? I don't think so. I don't want to get into speculation here, but it seems to me there's got to be some reason for us and for the universe. When you think about it, it's a very happy thought. Very happy thought. So, even as we are being faithful now, the Lord is preparing us for the work that we will one day be faithful in doing, in a setting where there is no sin, no sickness, no death, no dying. Satan will be once and for all absolutely destroyed and will be forever in the presence of the King. Boy, what a day that'll be. All right. Now we get into a very well-known parable in chapter 25, verses 1 to 13. I'm going to read it and then probably we'll comment on it in the next segment. At that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins that took their lamps, went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them are foolish, 5 are wise. The foolish ones took their lamps but didn't take any oil with them. The wise ones, however, took oil in jars along with their lamps. The bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight, the cry rang out, "Here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him." Then all the virgins woke up, trimmed their lamps. The foolish one said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil, our lamps are going out." "No," they replied, "there may not be enough for both us and you. Instead, go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves." But while they were on their way to buy the oil, the bridegroom arrived. The virgins who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later the others came. "Lord, Lord," they said, "open the door for us." But he replied, "Truly, I tell you, I don't know you. Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour." This parable really needs no explanation. I do have time to comment on it before the break. It's enough to recall that 5 women were ready for the big wedding party and 5 weren't. It's the ready, not ready theme again. The point, be ready, be ready, be ready, be ready. Preparation for Christ's coming is an indicator of our faith. And by faith, we are already citizens of the kingdom, and we're ready for the culmination of history, for the end of salvation history as we know it, and for the entry into the heavenlies, to experience the wonders that await us. As I was saying earlier, who knows what the Lord has planned for us in that massive universe that He's created. But believe me, it's going to be a glorious future, to say the least. So be ready. And how does one become ready? God, be merciful to me, a sinner. And Father, I commit my life to you, and I will follow your path and your will and your word obediently for the rest of my life. So Jesus moves on from the parable of the women getting ready or not being ready for the wedding to another parable. And this one is about bags of gold and some faithful and unfaithful servants. Let's read it, beginning with verse 14. "Again, they'll be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To the one, he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who'd received 5 bags of gold went out at once, put his money to work, and gained 5 bags more. So also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. But the man who'd received 1 went off, dug a hole in the ground, hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who'd received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold, so you have gained 5 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things. I'll put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. The man with 2 bags of gold also came. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 2 bags of gold. See, I've gained 2 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things. I'll put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Then the man who had received 1 bag of gold came. Master, he said, I knew that you're a hard man, harvesting where you've not sown, gathering where you've not scattered seed. So I was afraid, went out, hid your gold in the ground. See, here's what belongs to you. His master replied, you wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I've not sown and gather where I've not scattered seed, do you? Well, then you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. Take the bag of gold from him, give it to the one who has 10 bags, for whoever has will be given more, and they will have abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness, where there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth. This parable in the King James Version, uses the word talent, or talents. It really popularized the word talent, a word we use to this day, of course. In Jesus' time, the talent was a fixed amount of silver or gold of considerable value, and to give these talents, 5, 2, and 1, to these servants was really a remarkable act. Now, usually the parable is seen as a story about 3 men, the 5-talent man, the 2-talent man, but really this story is about the 1-talent man. The other 2 are merely foils. It hits the mark because most of Jesus' hearers and most of us are 1-talent people. Even though everyone is talented, the fact is we're not equally gifted. Nevertheless, we're all, like employees, accountable to our employer. And God's absence, if you will, in our world, seeming absence, provides us room for our talents to be used. In that sense, we're tenant farmers. Okay? It's like God is present, but he's not immediately present. Again, we're talking parabolically here, okay? So don't overreact to what I'm saying. The farmer who is absent, he risks plague and drought in planting and cultivating seed, which raises the central point of the story. God expects increase. There's no room for neutrality or the maintenance of the status quo. The faithful servant must commit to the risky road less traveled. So this parable is about us. It's about you and me. How often have we excused ourselves by saying, what can I do? I'm not capable. Or, why did he get so much money and I get so little? Then we blame shift and impute forces beyond our control for the unfairness of our situation. And sooner or later we become passive, lethargic. I'm only 1 key in the piano, we say. Well, what good is a piano with a silent key, I might ask? As is often the case in human experience, we face a choice of life or death, courage or fear, risk or regret. Are we willing to take a leap in the dark? What's the expression? No pain, no gain? It's interesting that in the parable, the 1-talent man accuses the master of basically being dishonest, harvesting where he hadn't planted, benefiting from projects where he's put no effort in. It's like he is a speculator, investing in the work of others, but he's not really legit. I mean, it took some courage to say this to his master. I mean, just a parable, but nevertheless. The master could easily have had his head chopped off. Have you ever said, well, God's not fair. He seems to bless some. He doesn't bless others. He shows up for that guy. He doesn't show up for me. At best, he's fickle. He's random. I pray and nothing happens. And yet that guy, he prays and everything happens. I mean, what's up with that? And we come up with all kinds of reasons why we should just basically hunker down and look after ourselves and live only to and for ourselves without thinking in terms of living to and for our Creator, living to and for our neighbor, letting our light shine. We say, well, I don't have any light. I got enough light for my own little household, but leave me there. We're risk averse on top of it. We're scared. We don't like uncertainty. We like to be in control. Do you like to be in control? Control is very beguiling. Because when we're in control, it's like we have become our own deity, our own source and beginning, our own final court of appeal, our own independent self. Not needing God, not needing neighbor, not needing anyone or anything. Just me, myself, and I. I remember hearing an old theologian one time say that the best definition of sin he could come up with was selfishness, navel-gazing, focusing on me. Today in our culture, it's a very common word now, we call it narcissism. It's all about me. Okay? It's a kind of a toxic self-love. There's nothing wrong with loving yourself. In fact, the Bible encourages us to love ourselves. Jesus said, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, as you love yourself with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. In fact, Jesus himself is saying you got to love God, love neighbor, but you also got to love yourself. So that's not narcissism. The narcissism is a kind of toxic introversion and self-focus that eventually can not only erode one's soul, but can shorten one's life. It's interesting in this world of social media right now. If you go through Instagram or some of these other social media platforms, everyone's putting their best face forward, right? Talking about their latest victory, their latest success, their latest this, their latest that, and it's all smiles and it's all beauty and it's all wonderful, and life just couldn't be better. And you know that in most cases it's a lie, but you kind of feel forced to come out with some kind of a competitive response. Life's great for you. Well, life's great for me. Look at me. Look at what I'm doing. Look at what I've done. Look at my new this. Look at my new that. I'm so happy. I'm just besotted with myself. Friends, it's time for us to stop this and to understand that God has invested not only His Spirit in us, but He has made us, if you will, into potential godlings. And I'm not giving a new doctrine here. What I'm saying, we are potential rulers and reigners, if you will, rulers and sovereigns with Him in whatever it is He has planned for the worlds yet to come. We have inestimable value in His eyes. And so instead of putting yourself down and saying, who am I? What have I got? Why do they all have what I don't have? God's not fair. God's distant. No. Understand that God knows your name. He has a plan for your life. And he is working it out as you faithfully put your hand in his and walk in his shadow, basically. Guide me, O thou great Jehovah, the old hymn says. I'm a pilgrim in this barren land. I'm weak. Thou art mighty. Hold me with thy powerful hand. Bread of heaven, feed me till I want no more. There's a plan. Be a part of the plan. Don't hide out. Don't bury your talent. Engage the process.
Working for orphans and widows, known as WOW, has been compassionately caring for what Jesus called the least of these for 25 years in sub-Saharan Africa. Founded by Jim and Kathy Cantelon in 1999, WOW has a trusted track record in South Africa, Zambia, and Malawi. The main focus of WOW is to provide home-based care for the poorest of the poor in isolated rural areas. WOW's ministry is comprehensive, engaging children, youth, young adults, widows, and pastors in providing relief for bed sores, oral thrush, skin cancers, hygienic afflictions, and tuberculosis, to twice-weekly visits for monitoring and evaluation. All this is faithfully ministered in Jesus' name. Those who die do so with dignity and always in the Lord. For 25 years, WOW has faithfully and humbly tried to express your love as donors and the love of God as Father to the weakest link. The joy on their faces as they receive the gift of love is exhilarating.
So friends, when you watch JCT, you see those promotions for WOW, Working for Orphans and Widows. This is a ministry that my wife and I started 25 years ago. And for those 25 years, we've been working with thousands and thousands now over the years of orphans and widows impacted by HIV and AIDS, by COVID-19, by tuberculosis, by opportunistic infections, and by the ravages of constant poverty. I mean, absolutely oppressive poverty. And when you support WOW, as we encourage you to do, you support JCT because we are the voice of WOW. WOW is our outreach to our world, and JCT is the presentation of why we should reach out to the world. And I hope that you find it worthy. Next program, I'll be dealing with the sheep and the goats parable of Jesus and the least of these, and I'll be telling you more about how we're working with the least of these in other parts of the world. Thanks for watching. See you next time.